So I had a stupid idea based in some semblance of logic, but you'll see how that turned out in a moment. Welcome back to Striking FPV R&D. My name's Ashton, and my apologies first of all for disappearing on all of you. Basically, work gets in the way, and then life needs to kind of reset, and then the YouTube channel, which I never thought would actually take off, suddenly gets neglected, so here we are. But anyway, that's just life. So if you're still here from all the toroidal shenanigans, then thank you for sticking around. So one thing that happened in my absence was the Wishbone Propeller by those Zipline people. Now, I like Mark Rober a lot, and that Zipline video was interesting, but it kind of came across a little bit kind of advertorial. You know, there wasn't much data behind it in the same way that the MIT paper didn't really seem to have that much data either. But the basic premise was if you had two blades that are offset kind of at this weird angle, then it would generate an uneven oscillation, blah, 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 fancy words, magical, lower pitch, and quieter propellers. Then you have to add a counterweight to the other side to balance the whole thing out, and so the Wishbone Propeller was born. Now, the idea of uneven propellers is not a new thing. Mono blades have existed in the past, and supposedly they have really good efficiency. So it's not unimaginable that someone like Zipline could come up with a variation on the concept. Now, I believe I actually had commenters on my old videos that even suggested that, you know, what if I tried doing a mono loop, a single loop propeller? And so I did. So curiosity did get the better of me, and so I decided to design that which you see in front of you now. And the counterweight part, the funny part about this is that the counterweight is just a really thick blade, so it also provides lift to some degree, or at least that's the hope, right? Now you might be wondering how I designed it. Well, basically, I designed it in the exact same way that I designed my toroidals, for which there's actually a video tutorial on how to do that. But the balancing part, that was really a lot of trial and error. You can imagine this part over here was just kind of like, it was a chunky piece that I've made, and then I shifted it around bit by bit, combined the whole thing, and then double checked the center of gravity in Fusion 360, and then it wasn't quite right, so I moved it again, double check, move it again, double check, and in the end, I think I got the center of gravity within 0.1, maximum 0.2 millimeters of the actual axis of rotation. Now, there may be better ways of doing this, but I'm not currently aware of any methods. Most production props are actually slightly imbalanced themselves, so there's a little bit of leeway there, but more importantly, because I am 3D printing these, the 3D printing process itself tends to deposit plastic somewhat unevenly. Gaps between the layer lines and everything means that there's always going to be somewhat of an uneven extrusion, and so I'll be very happy if this just flies at all, no matter how jankily it does. So with all that said, let's have a look at what eventually happened. I hope this doesn't explode in my face. That's not good. So yeah, basically the first time it kind of lifted up, then the prop blew up. And I was using silk PLA, as per Johnny's suggestion before. The second time I printed with slightly thicker layer lines, and that kind of spun up and then blew up again. The third time I printed using PETG, because this is the stuff that worked with the tri-loop design that I did before, and it still blew up. So finally I came up with the latest and greatest version 2.5 loop bone design, loop bone working name. And I made the counterweight a little bit stubbier, a little bit thicker, made the blade overall a little bit thicker, and that still also blew up. So, why all the prop explosions? Well, there's actually significant scoring on the inside of the prop guards. These are not stock Veyron prop guards, these are modified from a different drone. But the scoring is so even around the edges that I'm starting to wonder if it's possible that the blades themselves, where are they? I wonder if the blade, or the loop more accurately, was probably pulling outwards, like warping outwards due to the centrifugal force, and as a result, the edge started rubbing against the guard, and I guess the friction and the stress probably aided in blowing it up. That's just a working theory based off ideas in my head. So the solution's simple, right? Just remove the prop guards. But doing so on this modified Veyron 35 is a little bit difficult because the prop guards themselves, the way they're mounted, they add an additional 3 or 4 millimeters of thickness to the whole thing. So I'd need to get shorter screws. And because it's a pusher design, having no guards on the outside, it's actually a bit more of a risk because if you land a little bit funny, you're going to be digging propeller and motor into the ground. I mean, this has already kind of done that to some degree. So as a result, we'll have to wait on a dedicated test drone, which I will be building later this week from my old Cloud 149 Cinewoop. A lot of my early videos on YouTube, please check them out, were flown using a Cloud 149 and then the Cloud 149 HD drone. And so using that frame as well as these custom arms that I made back when I was going to convert it to a 3.5 inch, I'll be able to test 3.5, maybe up to 4-inch props using that, albeit with severely undersized motors, 1408 motors, but should work. And don't worry, the video isn't over because I still wanted to see if my original tri-loop design, where are they? They're gone. Where's my tri-loops? There we go. But don't worry, the video isn't over because I still wanted to see if my original tri-loop design would actually still fly, just to see how usable it still is. Now, if you remember in the last video, I only hovered with this just to check the amp draw and to see what it sounded like. But I still want to know if this is actually flyable. I never put on the goggles last time, so let's go see if this is viable. Cactus plant thing. Oh, filled the battery already. Yeah, that drained the battery stupidly quickly, and we were draining about 22 amps or so for hover. And as you can see, it indeed still flies. But of course, the battery drained a little bit faster because, well, still pulling way more amps. However, I did no post-processing on this whatsoever, and man, the vibrations. And so much jello. Like, I didn't notice that before, but like the FPV camera, it's like waves. I don't know how to describe it. And my FPV camera on the Veyron, it is already a little bit janky. It took a hit once, and ever since that hit, just has this slight jello to it. Maybe it's like a loose lens element because the sensor seems to be fine. But ever since then, it's been a little bit janky. With this, however, wow, the issue is exacerbated. Like, flying with the goggles on, it was so jello. It's like the wave filter in Photoshop, you know, that kind of thing. I'll do the effect maybe. And I could barely see what was going on in some cases. You know, the resonance comes and goes, so sometimes it's not bad, sometimes it gets really bad. Quite frankly, I want a medal for being able to fly that the way I did. Now, this isn't to say that the tri-loops are a complete write-off, because if you recall, Johnny Willett Mod printed his out of Silk PLA, my V3 tri-loop design, and he got pretty decent flight performance from that. And of course, Muffle Matt, or Matt Muffle, in Austria, he got great performance using a nylon carbon fiber print that he polished using a Dremel. Now, maybe the other elephant in the room is Foxeer. They recently, like a month ago, released their 5-inch donut props because, shouldn't call it toroidal just to be safe. And, great success so far. I've seen some videos and they seem to perform rather well. They do sound a bit funny. Not as quiet as we all kind of hoped they might be, but I would like to get my hands on those Foxeer props. It's not exactly a priority at this point, but, I'd like to. So Foxeer, if you're watching, probably not watching, I wouldn't mind receiving a pair if you want it. But anyway. Now, back to my ones though. It's interesting how they've undergone a few flights at this point and they haven't yet fallen apart. It's still holding on. And I think part of the reason for that, which I postulated in some of my other videos, is the fact that it's kind of self-supporting, if you see. Whereas this design, it's only being held on there. This design is being held on at the center as well as a little bit further out. So I feel like it's getting additional strength from that. But that's a lot of guessing on my part. I haven't run simulations or anything, so you can take my word with a grain of salt or a big chunk of salt, like a Himalayan salt lamp size chunk of salt. Yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and hope you found that interesting. If you want to see any further testing of this mono loop, Q prop, Quake prop, whatever we're going to call it, please do subscribe, like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment down below what you think this should actually be called. And if you want to support me, you can, of course, buy me a coffee or do that YouTube super like thing. I don't know how that works. Up to you. But anyway, thanks again, and see you in the next one. Actually, a bunch of outtakes where I'm just like throwing these behind me. I thought it'd be fun, but then I want it to like fall in the right place or something, like we can do better. Yeah, like that. Now I gotta pick it up again. Pretty.